now she's here right on time, so we can transition into, we're calling it our keynote presentation here with Congresswoman Young Kim. And thank you so much again for joining us. It's such a thrill that you could take time out of your busy day to join us for our conference here.
Well, Tim, thank you so much for inviting me. And before I speak, I want to say hello to Connie. Officially, I'm so sorry I crashed your panel before it finished. I didn't realize it was in session still. So just wanted to, I was just so happy and excited to see you again. So
thank you.
You look great.
Thank you. Well, I'm anxious to hear your thoughts. So
okay.
Thanks, Young Kim.
Thank you very much. So Tim, thank you again for your invitation to have me participate in this conference today. It's a real pleasure being with you, and I'm so delighted to meet many of you who are joining us virtually. I know there are many of you, and I'm not able to meet with you in person because, you know, Connie can tell you, Tim can tell you, I'm very much a gosh, and I love to hug people. So I'm a bear hugger. And so hopefully we will be able to do that safely anytime soon. But, you know, for me, I'm sitting here in my office at the Capitol, and we are in the middle of votes. So if you hear the buzz, I may have to, you know, I'm not going to stop in the middle of our presentation, but I just wanted to let you know we're voting today. For me, coming to Congress has been such a long journey, but one that is truly worth fighting for. You know, some say for young, coming to Congress is over 20 years in the making because, you know, I think they say that because I worked for former Congressman Ed Royce. But some people would say that, well, it's been 4 years running since I went for a rematch last year after I narrowly lost that race in 2018. But trust me, running for office was not my original goal. But one thing is for sure, I am not a quitter. And I'm a fighter when it comes to fighting for my community where I lived and worked for over 30 years. This 39th district is my home, my community. I'm representing my family and friends that I love. So I just wanted to give you a quick personal background before we get into your questions. As you know, I'm an immigrant from South Korea. So I do have a very, very humble beginning. My family immigrated to first Guam after I finished my elementary school. So after living on the island of Guam, I went to Hawaii before coming to California to attend USC. And I put myself through college. I raised a family. I married my husband, Charles, who I met while attending school. And we've been married for 35 years. And between the two of us, we have 4 grown-up children. I'm very proud of every single one of them. And as when Connie was still in the office as our assembly leader, I was elected to serve in 2014. And now I'm serving as your representative in the United States Congress. And this is after I have worked for Ed Royce for over 2 decades and my brief stint in the assembly in Sacramento, where I had the opportunity to work with you, Tim, as our communications director for the Assembly Caucus. And so it's truly an honor for me to be able to get back and you know, give back to my country and the community. This is such an honor, and I hope my story can inspire others to also feel that if Young Kim, an immigrant, a woman, mother of 4, can do this, I can do it. So I just wanted to live with that, you know, little hope and tell you that it's such an honor to be able to work with you. And I just wanted to let you know that I campaigned on the promise to be an independent leader and bring some common sense approach to finding bipartisan solution and help bridge the divide and break the partisan gridlock that we've seen. I mean, I experienced there when I served in assembly in Sacramento, and I came to Washington to make sure that the policies that come out of Sacramento, which I've experienced so bad, to make California where it is today. I want to make sure that those do not become a national norm. So I'm going to fight for you as best as I can, but I know that anything that we do has to be done in a bipartisan way so we can stand the test of time. So with that, I just want to turn it back to you, Tim, and I know you have some questions for me.
Well, thank you again for being here. And the most important part of all of that is that you're a Trojan. So fight on,
Right
to a
on.
fellow Trojan.
Yes.
You know, you're certainly taking office. Your first few weeks in office, I don't know, it feels like you've probably lived a year or more in a month. So I was hoping maybe we could start off with kind of sharing some of your initial observations and experience of transitioning to Congress. You mentioned a little bit about kind of how it compares with being in the assembly, and I saw yesterday you had a great announcement about the committees that you're going to be serving on. So any of all of those sorts of issues, we'd love to get your initial thoughts and observations on that.
Sure. So my initial thoughts and observation and the difference between serving in the assembly and in House of Representatives right now is obviously the sheer number of colleagues that I get to work on. It's such a big institution and it is such a partisan place, I have to tell you. And right after I was elected, I came here for the freshman orientation and I saw, it's not just because of COVID, but Speaker Pelosi has came up with such rules that we were not able to stay together. So we had to do our own orientations separately. And so it is an institution, not only because it's such a big place and it's partisan place, but I told my friends and community folks in the back when I went back after the orientation, this is a place like I'm walking into a lion's den. I need to be strong. I need to be able to hold my ground, so that's the immediate, observation that I had. And then the biggest observation that I have here is that any legislation that goes through Congress has the potential of impacting an entire country. So that's why, as members of Congress, we must be very, very thoughtful about the bills we introduce. So I just wanted to tell you that I'm very, very honored to be assigned to serve on 3 committees. Unlike the time that when I was serving in the state assembly, where we get to serve on like 5 or 6 different policy committees, we serve on 2. You're lucky if you serve on 3. And I got assigned to serve on House Foreign Affairs Committee, Space Science and Technology, and very importantly for our discussion here is on the Small Business Committee. And I'm also named the ranking member on the Subcommittee on Innovation, Entrepreneurship, and Workforce Development. Certainly having these 3 committee assignments and several respective subcommittees that I'll get to serve, it will keep me really busy, but it will also give me the opportunity to advance legislation through the committee process. But one of my top priorities is to ensure that we're opening our businesses safely and that we improve our vaccine distribution. Unfortunately, you talk about the resolution budget resolution that was just passed yesterday. I mean, we can talk about that a little later, but unfortunately, California ranks poorly in this rate of individuals getting the vaccine. I'm told that there is only about 7.2% of eligible individuals for the vaccine in California that have been inoculated with the first dose. Our state is behind other big states like Texas, New York on that vaccination rate. So another priority of mine is to empower small businesses and entrepreneurs. The subcommittee that I serve on is innovation, entrepreneurship, and workforce development. So I hope to, really pay attention to our innovation and entrepreneurship there. And as we look to recover from pandemic, Congress must ensure that our small and medium-sized businesses have the tools and access to capital that is needed to be successful. So those are just some of my observations and my immediate priorities.
You know, I love when you touched upon, this importance of working together. Um, and it's kind of the theme of a lot of the work that we do here at PRI, that with, given what the political dynamic is today, we know it's a challenging time for those of us who believe in free market and market-based solutions. As we're showing with this conference, there really is the potential to build kind of untraditional alliances across the political spectrum on some of these free market issues. What are some areas as you approach um, your new job in Congress? What are some areas that you see where Republicans and Democrats can forge that consensus and compromise this session or beyond, around free market policy ideas?
Yes. I believe that we should be able to compromise on a number of issues. The first one being international trade. When I was working with Congressman Ed Royce, who served on the Foreign Affairs Committee, he was also the chairman of the several interparliamentary exchange groups where I served as an interlocutor, one of which focused on trade, security, and human rights, and many other issues. But during that time, we were able to work on congressional ratification for NAFTA, CAFTA, and most recently, the US-Korea free trade agreements. So trade to me is very, very important. And I think we have a good opportunity to increase international trade with our allies and economic partners by eliminating barriers of entry for US goods and products. And I would like to see the US rejoin or join Trans-Pacific Partnership, TPP. That would bring thousands of import-export jobs to California. As you know, the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, they rely on the commerce that we have with our Asian countries. So if we rejoin TPP, it would allow us to encircle China and increase our commercial footprint in the region.
Now, kind of starting out, I know it's definitely not a 9 to 5 job, your job back there. As I know, we were texting way too late where you were back east last night. And, certainly we're off to the races this week with, all the deep discussion about stimulus legislation and the budget reconciliation that happened this week. I believe the Senate passed the legislation something like 5:30 in the morning East Coast time this morning, not yesterday. It's been interesting, the development on how this discussion over stimulus / reconciliation has gone on. You have that Senate Republican group, extending that kind of olive branch offer to try to work with the Biden administration on a cheaper plan that might get more consensus. But it seems that the Speaker and Senator Schumer are really trying to push through this $1.9 trillion plan.
Yeah.
And as we noted, this week you voted on that budget reconciliation plan. What are your thoughts on this whole debate over stimulus in Congress and the various plans? We joked with Connie and asked her to put her tiara on, which, as you know, she has many in her office. If I borrowed one of her tiaras for you and made you Queen of Washington for the day, what would you ultimately like to see in a final stimulus, a measure that passes? And is having a huge plan like what's being talked about, is that the best thing we should be doing to help our economy right now?
As I said earlier, I came to Congress hoping that I could work across the aisle with Democrats and Republicans alike to provide Americans with the bipartisan relief that they so deserve and need right now. But with what we witnessed yesterday, passing the budget resolution, Democrats have made it very, very clear that as long as they have the majority, they have no intention of compromising with Republicans on a stimulus package. Remember, there is still about $1 trillion that have yet to be spent from the relief bills that we passed last year. So the next relief package should not be bloated, but targeted. Small businesses are still struggling because of the lockdowns that we've experienced all year last year. So if we can provide targeted relief to save small businesses immediately, we can save jobs. Relief should also focus on vaccine distribution and reopening schools. That's why I joined my colleagues in the Problem Solvers Caucus, which I'm a member of. It has the equal number of Democrats and Republicans working to find bipartisan solution. So we are introducing a standalone bill called the Defeating COVID-19 Package to provide $160 billion that is focused on vaccine distribution and development. And that is included in President Biden's $1.9 trillion package. As we vaccinate more people and as more parents can take their children to school during the workday, we can reopen the economy and we can lighten the spending burden on the government. And I'm so frustrated that obviously budget Connie knows this very, very well, but I'm just frustrated with the process that is taking place, but it is what it is. I'm here to work in a bipartisan way, and I really will be focused on doing just that.
Here on that vaccine distribution. As an aside, I got yesterday, and she's tuning in now because she's a big fan of yours. I got the text message that every son or daughter wants to get. My mom is getting her COVID vaccine next week on Tuesday. So, it shouldn't have to be this way, that you have to go through all of these hoops. In California, the home of innovation, it takes, such hoops for so many people just to get the vaccine. So,
Right.
What a great effort you all are doing on that, and hopefully
And
that
over the
comes to
weekend, when I
fruition.
was in the district, I did visit the vaccine sites in Orange County and in LA County, and I was very impressed how the logistics work really well. And I talked to many people that were vaccinated and how grateful they are. They almost feel like, oh my God, I'm safe now. But the common theme that I heard is that we need more vaccines. And there's a private entities like Kaiser, they get their share of allocation. And then there is a state getting the allocation, and then they share that with counties, and then they do the vaccines. But the bottom line is we need more vaccines, and that's what I'm going to fight for. And that's why I thought this standalone bill to get as many people vaccinated as soon as possible will be the sure way for us to open up our businesses and open the schools.
So all of this talk about these big plans that I think we're almost sensitized to. $1.9 trillion is a huge amount of money. It naturally brings up concerns about the national debt. The first Biden plan, is going to be paid for. You have in Washington what we don't have in Sacramento, literally a printing press of money. Mm-hmm. And that's in addition to all the massive spending increases we had last year for the various COVID plans. And many economists are fearing that our debt is growing out of control. Do you share that fear? And how do we balance, the COVID-19 relief that people need to keep food on the table, keep their businesses open, with these real concerns about the national debt?
Tim, I completely share that concern with economists. The national debt is over $27 trillion, and our current levels of spending are not feasible in the long term. Eventually, interest on our debt will outgrow the federal government's entire annual budget. The national debt will burden our many generations to come, and we don't want to do that to our children and grandchildren. As stated earlier, the stimulus package needs to target those hit the hardest by this pandemic. We need to provide the means for businesses and schools to safely reopen. The faster we can vaccinate people, the faster we can get people back to work eventually and bring our spending down as the economy returns to normal.
So
Ignore that buzz. That means I got like 5'10". My staff is sitting here giving me signs.
I
So
just heard from them. So you have good staff there. So I think maybe what I'll do is I'll ask you this last question that we can end on, and then you can
sure.
get there too, because being a former staff, once a staffer, always a staffer. So we want to keep you on time. You
Thank you.
know, the big debate with COVID over school reopenings, both in California and across the country. You know, President Biden says he wants to get America's students back to school as quickly as possible. Yet, you know, teachers unions in California has really been holding up these swift reopening plans. You've seen charter schools and private schools adapt so much more quickly to online learning than our traditional schools. Yeah, you've seen restrictions placed on their funding. So in your view, what should Congress be doing to get schools reopened as quickly as possible? You know, is it a funding issue? Is it a policy issue? It's both. And how do we ensure parents and students have these choices that they're demanding to ensure that, you know, all of our students have the best education possible, even in a pandemic?
You know, Tim, you've seen me when I served in the state assembly. I'm a big proponent of school choices, and as a mother of four, it's really important that the kids are back in school in a safe manner. So, the bottom line is this: we must first focus on making sure that we focus on improving the vaccine distribution. It cannot be possible that our state of California has been sitting on 40% of the allocated vaccines. So states and local governments must be better coordinated to ensure a smooth vaccine allocation. The state of California and Governor Newsom, they must also do a better job in coordinating the communication to keep Californians well informed on the vaccine distribution. You know, there is no doubt that California needs additional funding for vaccine, which is what I support, which is why I'm supporting the bipartisan defeating COVID-19 bill. But the state must also explain why it did not have a plan in place to, in the first place, to distribute the vaccines. Governor Newsom had many months to prepare, but instead, gosh, we have a chaotic rollout in our hands. So I see the issue of reopening schools as a political one. And labor unions keep moving the goalposts for kids and their families. The CDC and other groups of experts, they have indicated that schools are safe to reopen if air ventilation is improved, mask wearing is implemented, and social distancing enforced. So if schools are implementing these actions, I know we have a good chance to reopen. So we must ensure that the charter schools have to get their equal funding during the pandemic and deny actions to hinder the growth of online charters during the pandemic.
Well, with that, we'll let you go and cast that important vote. But
Thank you.
Thank you so much again. All of your many Sacramento friends were very jealous that I was going to get to chat with you today.
Oh,
So
gosh.
thank
I
you.
promise, if, you know, when there is an opportunity, I promise I'm going to come to Sacramento and say hello.
Well, thank you again, and keep up the great work that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was good to see you, Tim. And thanks again for the opportunity to speak to many people that are online or, you know, streaming live too. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much, Congresswoman Young Kim.